This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
I know it's that Trevon's injury is still pretty fresh, but just kind of what's the mindset of the coaching staff and the team after seeing one of your top guys go down like that?
Yeah, I mean, we're all. I mean, the biggest thing is just trying to support, TB and I was just a little bit ago with he and his dad and the trainer, and just kind of going through timelines and he'll get a chance to meet with the surgeon tomorrow and figure out an exact date of when the surgery will happen. And we want him to be around the team as much as he possibly can be. Like I said, he was already in this morning, getting with our trainer. They need the swelling to go down. Want to strengthen the quad a little bit, gets range of motion. And then at that point, after that, is when surgery will happen. So more concerned with him being in the right mental frame and being okay with, as much as a player can be. I think that's the biggest, concern. And then, just from a basketball standpoint, he was, when we built the roster, he was a big part of how we wanted to play with his versatility. And it's obviously, a huge blow to us. But, these things happen in athletics and we've got to figure out, how we move forward. And, it's just it's a shame that this ball club will only really have one game together that it was fully healthy. And that's not going to change. That's just going to be a fact for the entire year. So, but somebody's going to get a new opportunity, or a couple guys are, and then we just have to hope that, that guys play well.
Yeah, I'm thinking with Trevon, it's not so much next man up, but maybe next men up, plural, because so versatile. Is this maybe like opportunities for Jalen? You play Devo more, maybe Jordan, Mikal. Just how do you feel? Is it kind of by committee maybe to try to do the stuff Trevon was giving you?
Yeah, just because he's 6'11" and can guard 3, 4s, and 5s. So yeah, I looked at last year's box score against Oklahoma. Trey Wade hardly played. He ended up being a starter for us. Stanley Amude came off the bench that game. He ended up being a starter and a go-to player for us. So it's ever evolving. We just want to continue to try to, who we are Saturday it's a new ball club. TB was a leader for us way back when we went and played the 4 games overseas. He's been a go-to player and a guy that we've relied on offensively, defensively, blocking shots, versatility. So there's going to be an adjustment. There's no doubt about it. And like I mentioned, just other guys are going to get an opportunity. I don't think there's one particular player. I think it's there's 25 or 26 minutes that are now available that probably were not available up until that injury.
And you mentioned, the other day, maybe the deepest team you've ever had. And obviously, you hate losing any player, but especially somebody like Trevon. But do you feel like this is where your depth really could come into play?
I think, certainly we hope that for sure, Bob. Earlier today I did an interview and I talked about it in Nevada that, Lindsey Drew was the first player I recruited and was a starter. And, he and I couldn't have been on more of the same wavelength as a point guard and a head coach. And he tore his Achilles and we moved our power forward, Cody Martin, to the point guard spot, which was unheard of at that particular time to move Cody from where we did to the point. And we ended up, being a basket away from making an Elite 8 or 10, 15 seconds away from getting one more stop and going to an Elite 8. And when Lindsey got hurt, quite frankly, I didn't know if we were going to be able to win a game because we relied on Lindsey so much. So I just use that as an example, with the team and roles, positions, things just they're going to change.
Okay, probably got a couple more. I'll turn it back to Mike if time allows to come back around. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Bob.
Curtis.
Hey, Coach, just wanted to ask you a couple questions about Oklahoma. Obviously, Sherfield is a new addition for them, but it seems like he's a guy that really makes things go. What have your impressions been of him so far?
I mean, I still like to watch Nevada play. Craig Neal's a former player of mine, and he's on that staff. And I've always had great admiration for Coach Alford. And, so I got to watch Sherfield, the last couple of years. He's a dynamic scorer. He can really shoot the three, 11 made threes in his last 2 games. He's got a really good off the dribble pull up. So he's a really tough cover. I mean, he's a really, really good offensive player. And then, both Groveses, they have different roles, but they're both really effective. And last year I thought Hill played really well for them. And so it's a really good team with, several guys back from last year that in that game that played against us, both Groves, Hill, Cortez, those guys, all played against us last year, Nolan. So they got a lot of guys that played in this game last year that are back and guys that'll see minutes just as they did last year.
And just curious your thoughts about, what Porter Moser's been able to do there in just a couple of years. And obviously you have a history with him, you guys coaching against each other.
Yeah. I mean, Porter Moser is one of the best coaches in college basketball. He's got a great demeanor. His teams always play really hard. Defensively, they're very, very, real solid, real disciplined defensive teams. His teams move well. Without the ball. They're good cutters. They run dribble handoff action. They always share the ball. So they have, themes on both sides of the basketball, which is why he's won so many games anywhere he's coached at.
Jacob.
Eric, last season, Oklahoma was the first big game, I guess, that was on the schedule. I think it was actually the first time you guys were on the road. Now this season, an entire new group, but doing the Europe tour and playing 3 big games in Maui. Have you noticed a difference with how the team looks this time of year after getting that experience compared to last year going into Tulsa to play their first big game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Maui helps everybody, all the teams that were over there. I think it's going to help all of them. And certainly, last year we were feeling good going into the Oklahoma game as we were undefeated. So yeah, I think that playing the 3 games, and I don't think the games in Europe have any real I mean, we didn't play in front of crowds or anything like that. It was fairly small attended games. But I do think that the Maui neutral site, packed gym helps, for sure. Play in an atmosphere like we'll be in on Saturday.
And then what have you seen from Jalen over the last couple months in the areas that we don't normally get to see off the court, during practice, during that extra time? Just what have you seen from him over the last couple months while he's not getting the most playing time?
Yeah, Jalen Graham is obviously he's an offensive weapon because he can face up and beat people off the dribble. He's got a pretty good 15 to 17 foot face up game. He's got a good push shot around the rim and a soft touch, much like Antoine Jameson used to do, where he gets it out of his hands very quickly around the rim. And if you look at his rebounds per minute, is sky high. So he's rebounded the ball, he scored the basketball, and defensively, he can get off the ground. I think he can be an even more effective shot blocker than maybe what we've seen. Today, first practice back since our last game, he was here really early. I can tell you that today. It's the earliest I've seen him here. So he's excited to practice today, I guess, if he was here that early.
Scotty. Yeah, Eric, I'm curious what you have made of you guys' ball screen defense lately and how important that'll be Saturday. I think Tanner Groves had some success from 3 last year as kind of a pick and pop guy. And AB was saying that he was, not super happy with how coverages have gone lately.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's kind of personnel driven, and certainly they have a really good dribble handoff game with 35 Groves and several players, but him and Sherfield, and obviously the pick and pop game with 34, the other Groves, he can pick and pop. 35 Groves is a little bit more of a roller, but also can pick and pop and can pick and pop and then run a DHO to the second side. So, coverages, we haven't really gotten to our B coverage much. For most of the year, even the Creighton game, we've kind of stuck to our plan A scheme defensively. So if we have to get to plan B, then, we'll be able to work on that today and work on that tomorrow as well.
And I may be looking too much into this, and you can stop me if you need to, but I think the NBA 3-point line is down in BOK, or it was last year. Or will there be conversations about shot discipline, or just, not getting caught up in taking those deep threes?
I mean, JD kind of loved it. So we tried to warn him about that line, but I don't think JD heard me. But yeah, I think certainly that's something that we will address today.
Hutch?
Yeah, Coach, with Trevon, I know it's still really fresh, but has there been any talk about kind of what the future holds for him, or are those conversations kind of for a later date?
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation really, to be honest, Hutch, is when is the surgery going to be? What is the weight room going to look like? Making sure that he continues to do everything that Matt the trainer. I think that's the only thing right now that there's not, the injury happened. We want him to be around the team. We want him to travel with our team. We're hopeful that he's not going to travel to Tulsa, because we're trying to get the swelling down in a 2-hour bus ride at his size, being on a bus. Those are the type of conversations that we had today was, the conversation about a 2-hour bus ride and about the knee, not being elevated, and, about maybe surgery happening, after the LSU game or right before the LSU game and after Christmas. So I think all those conversations are the appropriate conversations right now as he tries to get through this, this injury that, suddenly occurred, and we're all, it's so fresh in all of our minds that, how do we get him where he's on the road to recovery as quick as possible?
And then whenever you're playing a team that beat you the way they did last year, is there any extra motivation for you? And I know it's pretty much just Devo and Kamani from last year's team. Is there any extra motivation, or is it because it's a whole different team? It's a different deal. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's a different team. I know when we lost to Loyola, in the Sweet 16, we had many of those guys back when we played Loyola at their place the next year. And but with this year's team, just too many. It's too many. 10 guys in uniform were not here, so it's regardless of the outcome. Saturday, I think last year's game is irrelevant. We made an Elite Eight last year, and Oklahoma beat us really, they beat us, but we were able to recover from that game, and we were able to use it it was a big part of our teaching throughout the year, how that game unfolded. So again, I don't really think that last year's game has any relevance at all to any of us, to be honest.
Follow.
Yeah, Eric, you mentioned meeting with Trevon and his dad. How'd that go? And I'm sure he's down, but how would you say he's doing mentally with everything? Talking about Trevon.
I think he's doing great. I mean, I talked to him not once, not twice yesterday on the phone. I was, when I called him, I was just a little worried that he might want to just kind of hang out and gather his thoughts. But he's been great. I talked to his sister yesterday, and you know, she's thinking of trying to come out whenever the surgery date gets settled. And Phil, his father, was great. Again, he was in our training room with TB when we went through some things. So I think he's doing, you know, really well for, you know, considering everything that, like I said, he was looking forward to this game, and he was looking forward to, you know, to playing out the SEC, and, you know, it's not going to happen now for him. So, but I do think he's in the right frame of mind. Like I said, we talked about, you know, upper body stuff that he can do in the weight room, and maybe some things that he could do with his healthy leg, and how quickly he wants to get that started. So everything's just moving forward, and you know, I mean, he's hanging in there.
And you mentioned, so have you guys already practiced today?
No, we got 15 minutes and 25 seconds. We get going.
Okay. So how early was Jalen in there?
I don't know, an hour and 40 minutes before.
Okay. Well, that's good. And then, yeah, you don't have Nick for the first 6, then you lose Devo for a game. Then you finally get everybody together for one freaking game, and then Trevon gets hurt. I mean, and I know you got lots of talent, but how frustrating is that? And you know, talk to Anthony about this. You guys still have a lot of good players, obviously. Do you still feel, you know, good about this team? But just how frustrating is it that you don't, just one game is the only time you're going to have everybody available?
I mean, it is what it is. As my wife said, get to work and have a good attitude, and get your team ready to play. Since the injuries happened, and I bring it up, she says, you know, because she texted with TV as well, but she's right. Like, hey, other than you guys talking about it, you know, in our staff meeting, it's the guys that are in uniform, and how do we figure out who we are? I mean, it definitely changes our team. There's no doubt about that. He's, in my opinion, he's one of the top, you know, 5 players in the league. And so it's going to hurt us because of his talent level and his size. But, you know, I gave you the Nevada example. You know, we had a player playing the power forward spot that I didn't know could play the point guard like he did, and he now doing it at the NBA level. So hopefully we as a group can figure this thing out. Again, last year at this time, we didn't have Trey Wade's role figured out, and we didn't have Stanley Amude's role figured out. So there's a lot of things that will still evolve throughout the course of this season for sure.
So I meant to ask you about Jordan Walsh too. I know he didn't play many minutes. He's been a little up and down. Obviously, he's a talented kid. How could he maybe help fill the void?
Yeah, I think just running the floor hard, shooting the ball with confidence, continue to work on ball handling. He's had a great attitude. He was in the weight room early today, lifting weights. You know, he's been getting shots up on his own. I think just, you know, playing with as much confidence as he possibly can. And you know, he's had some, you know, he played well in Maui. He, you know, the last 2 games in Maui, he played a lot of minutes, 30 plus minutes. And I think 30 plus minutes against San Diego State and maybe Creighton. So we're going to need Jordan to, you know, to play well.
Football is back, and BetOnline remains your #1 source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.